The metal floor was cold against Han Jiwoo's knees. She could feel every bruise on her body, every cut that had not yet stopped bleeding. 3 days. That was how long she had been in this alien prison. 3 days of pain, 3 days of questions, 3 days of refusing to break. 2 massive guards dragged her through the narrow hallway. Their hands were like iron clamps on her arms. She did not fight them. There was no point, not yet. She kept her head down and watched the floor move beneath her feet. Each step brought her closer to the interrogation room. She had been there before. The door opened with a hiss. The guards threw her inside and she hit the floor hard. The impact sent pain shooting through her shoulder, but she did not cry out. She would not give them that satisfaction. Slowly, she pushed herself up to her knees and raised her head. Commander Talvex stood in the center of the room. He was massive, at least 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms that ended in clawed hands. His skin was dark gray, covered in thick armored plates that looked like they could stop bullets. His eyes were yellow with black slits like a predator watching prey. He looked down at her and laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that echoed off the metal walls. "This is what humans send to fight us?" he said in his rough voice. "Fragile little creatures. You break so easily." Jiwoo said nothing. She met his eyes and held his gaze. She would not look away. She would not show fear. Talvex walked closer. Each step shook the floor. 3 days, he said. 3 days and you have told us nothing. Do you think your silence makes you strong? Do you think your resistance matters? He reached down with one of his massive hands and grabbed a steel bar from a nearby table. With barely any effort, he squeezed. The metal groaned and bent like soft clay in his grip. Then it snapped in half with a sharp crack. He threw the broken pieces at her feet. "That is human strength," he said. "Nothing. You are insects trying to fight gods. You should have stayed on your little planet. You have no place among the stars." Jiwoo looked at the broken metal. Then she looked back at Talvex. A small smile touched the corner of her mouth. "You have no idea," she said quietly, "what we are capable of when you back us into a corner." The commander's eyes narrowed. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Was it doubt? Curiosity? Whatever it was, it vanished quickly, replaced by cold anger. Still defiant, he growled. "Good. Breaking the defiant ones is always more satisfying." He turned to the guards at the door. "Bring in the Apex Guard." Jiwoo's heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. The Apex Guard, she had heard about them. They were Talvex's personal warriors, the most elite fighters in the Vorthan military. Each one was trained from birth to kill. Each one had survived hundreds of battles. They were supposed to be unstoppable. The door opened again. 5 figures entered the room. They were all massive, even bigger than Talvex. Their armor was black and covered with scars from countless fights. Each one carried weapons that looked like they could tear a person apart. Talvex gestured to them. "The Apex Guard," he announced. "Vorkon, Zelric, Krathon, Nexel, and Gorvax. Between them, they have killed thousands. They have crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. And today they will teach you about true strength." The 5 warriors spread out, surrounding her in a circle. They moved with practiced coordination like a pack of wolves. Jiwoo remained on her knees watching them. She could see the confidence in their movements, the certainty of victory in their postures. They thought she was already defeated. They thought this would be easy. That was their first mistake. Talvex walked to the edge of the room and sat down in a chair that looked like a throne. "I want you to understand something, human," he said. "Your species is weak. Your bodies are soft. Your bones break easily. You have no claws, no armor, no strength. The only reason you survived as long as you did was luck. But luck runs out." He leaned forward. "I will give you one last chance. Tell me where your resistance bases are. Tell me how many ships you have. Tell me everything, and I will make your death quick. Refuse, and the Apex Guard will show you what happens to those who defy the Vorthan Empire." Jiwoo slowly got to her feet. Her legs were shaky and pain shot through her body, but she stood. She looked at Talvex, then at each of the 5 warriors surrounding her. Finally, she spoke. "You talk about strength," she said. "You talk about power, but you do not understand what makes humans dangerous." She paused. "It is not our strength. It is not our size. It is what we do when we have nothing left to lose." Talvex laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Brave words from someone about to die." He waved his hand. "Vorkon, show her." The largest of the Apex Guard stepped forward. Vorkon was a mountain of muscle and armor. He pulled out a wicked-looking blade almost as long as Jiwoo was tall. The metal gleamed under the harsh lights. "I will start with your arms," Vorkon rumbled. "Then your legs." Then he never finished the sentence. Jiwoo moved. Despite her injuries, despite 3 days without proper food or water, she moved faster than any of them expected. She was not trying to run away. She was diving forward straight at Vorkon. The warrior laughed and swung his blade down. It was a killing blow meant to split her in half, but Jiwoo was already rolling to the side. The blade slammed into the metal floor with a shower of sparks, and then she was behind him. Her hand shot out, fingers stiff and precise. She struck a specific point on the back of his neck, right where his armor plates met. It was a spot she had memorized from stolen Vorthan medical files. A weak point, a neural cluster that controlled motor functions. Vorkon's entire body went rigid. His blade clattered to the floor. He tried to turn, tried to move, but his limbs would not respond. Jiwoo grabbed the fallen blade with both hands. It was incredibly heavy, but adrenaline gave her strength. The room was silent for 1 heartbeat. 2. Then chaos erupted. The other 4 warriors roared and charged. But Jiwoo was already moving again, using Vorkon's paralyzed body as a shield. Zelric's claws raked across his comrade's armor instead of Jiwoo's flesh. In that moment of confusion, Jiwoo slashed out with the blade. It was not a skilled strike, but it did not need to be. The blade was sharp enough to cut through Zelric's arm guard, drawing first blood. Talvek stood up from his throne, his yellow eyes wide. "Impossible," he whispered. But Jiwoo was just getting started. She reached into her torn uniform, into the lining she had carefully kept hidden. Her fingers found the small packet she had sewn there before her capture. A chemical compound designed by human scientists specifically to burn through Vorthan armor. She crushed the packet and threw the contents at Zelric. The chemical hissed and smoked when it hit his chest plate. The armor began to melt. Zelric screamed, a sound that was almost human in its agony. He clawed at his own armor, trying to remove it, but the chemical was already eating through to his skin. The smile on Jiwoo's face was not pleasant. It was the smile of a predator that had been playing dead, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "You wanted to see what happens when you back a human into a corner," she said softly. "Now watch." Zelric was still screaming. The chemical burned deeper into his flesh, and the smell of melting armor filled the room. The other 3 warriors froze for just a second, shocked by what they were seeing. A second was all Jiwoo needed. She dropped low and kicked out with both legs, sweeping them across the floor. It was a move that would never work on a prepared opponent. But Krathon was not prepared. He was still staring at his burning comrade. Her feet hit his ankles, and despite his massive size, his balance was wrong. He stumbled. Jiwoo rolled away and came up with Vorkon's blade still in her hands. Krathon was already recovering, bringing his own weapon around. She did not try to block it. Instead, she threw the heavy blade like a spear. Her aim was not perfect, but it did not need to be. The blade spun through the air and struck Krathon in the face. He roared in pain and anger. Nexel and Gorvax charged from opposite sides. They were faster than the others, more coordinated. Jiwoo saw them coming and knew she could not dodge both. So she did something they did not expect. She ran straight at the wall. At the last second, she jumped. Her boots hit the metal wall and she pushed off with all her strength. The move sent her flying backward over Nexel's head. She twisted in midair and landed behind him. Her hand shot out and grabbed a small device from his belt. It looked like a grenade. She did not know exactly what it did. She did not care. She activated it and threw it at Gorvax. The device exploded in a burst of electricity. Gorvax convulsed as thousands of volts coursed through his body. His armor conducted the electricity, making it even worse. He collapsed, smoke rising from his joints. 4 down. 1 to go. Nexel was the smartest of them. Jiwoo could see it in his eyes. He did not charge blindly. He circled her slowly, carefully. He had seen what happened to the others. He would not make the same mistakes. "Clever," Nexel said. His voice was calmer than the others, more controlled. "You studied us. You learned our weaknesses. You planned this." He gestured to the fallen warriors around them. "But you are still injured. Still tired. Still weak?" Jiwoo was breathing hard. He was right. Every movement sent pain through her body. The adrenaline was starting to fade and exhaustion was creeping in. She had surprise on her side before. Now Nexel knew what she was capable of. "You cannot win," Nexel continued. He was still circling, looking for an opening. You might have gotten lucky with them, but I am different. I will not fall for your tricks. Jiwoo smiled through the blood on her lips. You are right, she said. I cannot beat you in a fair fight. She paused. Good thing I never fight fair. She reached into her mouth and pulled out a small capsule. It had been hidden under her tongue for 3 days, waiting for this moment. She crushed it between her teeth. Nexel lunged forward, sensing danger. But he was too late. Jiwoo spit the contents of the capsule directly into his face. It was a concentrated pathogen, designed by human scientists specifically for Vorthan biology. The Vorthans had a powerful regeneration factor. Their bodies could heal from almost any wound. It made them nearly impossible to kill. But the pathogen turned that strength into a weakness. It triggered the regeneration factor and then twisted it, made it go wrong. Nexel staggered back. He could feel something happening inside his body. His regeneration was activating, but instead of healing, his cells were multiplying out of control. Tumors began growing on his skin. His muscles started tearing themselves apart and regrowing over and over. He looked at Jiwoo with wide eyes. What? What did you do to me? I turned your greatest strength against you, Jiwoo said quietly. That is what humans do. We find the thing that makes you powerful and we make it kill you. Nexel opened his mouth to scream, but his throat was already changing, swelling. The scream came out as a gurgle. He fell to his knees, then to his face. His body continued to change, continued to grow and tear and regenerate in an endless, agonizing cycle. Jiwoo turned away from him. She looked across the room at Talvex. The commander was standing now. His forearms hung at his sides. His yellow eyes were fixed on the scene before him. 5 of his best warriors, 5 of the most elite fighters in the entire Vorthan military, all of them dead or dying, killed by one small injured human. Impossible, Talvex whispered again, but this time there was something else in his voice. Fear. Jiwoo walked toward him. Each step was painful, but she did not let it show. She picked up a weapon from one of the fallen guards as she moved. When she was close enough to see the fear clearly in his eyes, she stopped. You wanted to teach me about strength, she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the silent room. You wanted to show me how weak humans are. How we have no claws, no armor, no power. She gestured to the carnage around them. Did you learn anything? Talvex's hand moved toward a panel on the wall. An alarm. Jiwoo saw it and moved faster. She threw the weapon and it struck his hand, pinning it to the wall. He roared in pain. Not yet, Jiwoo said. She walked closer. We are not done talking. You see, this was never about escape. This was never about surviving your torture. She smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. This was about getting exactly where I needed to be. Talvex stared at her. Understanding was starting to dawn in his eyes, and with it came horror. You let yourself be captured, he said slowly. Yes, Jiwoo confirmed. 3 months of planning. 2 months of tracking your ship. 1 month of setting up the ambush. And 3 days of waiting for you to bring me exactly where I needed to be. She looked around the room. Right here, in the heart of your ship. She pulled something else from her uniform. It was a small data chip no bigger than her fingernail. While you were busy trying to break me, I was studying your ship. Every system, every security protocol, every weakness. She held up the chip. And now I have access to everything. Talvex tried to pull his hand free, but the weapon had gone through bone. He was trapped. You cannot do anything with that, he said, but his voice shook. The systems are locked. You need authorization codes. Jiwoo walked over to Vorkon's paralyzed body. His eyes could still move, still see. She knelt down and placed her hand on his head right over the neural cluster she had struck earlier. Your Apex Guard, she said. Each one has biosignature authorization for different systems. Vorkon here has access to the detention blocks. She pressed her fingers against his skull and something inside clicked. His eyes went blank. Not anymore. She moved to the next fallen warrior. Zelric had access to weapon systems. Krathon controlled life support. Nexel managed communications. And Gorvax? She looked at the smoking body. He had access to the ship's navigation and engine controls. Jiwoo stood up and inserted the data chip into a panel on the wall. Lights began to flash. Alarms started to sound, but she had already locked them out. What are you doing? Talvex shouted over the alarms. Jiwoo turned to face him. I am releasing every human prisoner on this ship. I am unlocking every cell, opening every door, and giving them access to your weapons. She paused. And then I am going to show you what happens when you imprison people who have nothing left to lose. The lights in the room changed from white to red. Throughout the ship, detention cells were opening. Weapons lockers were unlocking. The prisoners who had been tortured, who had been broken down, who had been called weak were now free, and they were angry. Talvex pulled desperately at his pinned hand. You have doomed yourself. Even if you release the prisoners, this ship has thousands of warriors. You cannot win. Jiwoo walked to the door. Before she left, she looked back at him one last time. You still do not understand, she said. This was never about winning a fight. This was about sending a message, she smiled. And the message is simple. Never corner a human. She walked out, leaving Talvex alone with the bodies of his apex guard and the sound of his ship tearing itself apart from the inside. The corridors of the Vorthon dreadnought echoed with the sounds of chaos. Alarms blared. Weapons fire crackled through the air. And above it all, the screams of Vorthon warriors mixed with the battle cries of freed human prisoners. Jiwoo moved through the madness like a ghost. She had memorized the ship's layout during her 3 days of captivity. Every corridor, every junction, every access point. While Talvex had been focused on breaking her body, she had been breaking into his ship's systems. She reached the detention level and found exactly what she expected. The cells were open and humans were pouring out. They were thin, battered, and scarred, but their eyes burned with something the Vorthons had not expected. Hope and rage. Lieutenant Park Hyun-soo was the first to see her. He was leaning against a wall, favoring his left leg. 3 days ago, the Vorthons had broken it during an interrogation. But he was standing and he had a Vorthon rifle in his hands, Captain, he said, and his voice cracked with emotion. I knew you would come. I never left, Jiwoo replied. She looked past him at the other prisoners. There were maybe 50 of them, all from different captures over the past months. How many can fight? Hyun-soo straightened despite the pain in his leg. All of us, Captain. We have been waiting for a chance to hit back. A young woman pushed through the crowd. Corporal Lee Daeun. She was barely 20 years old, with a bandage wrapped around her head and burn marks on her arms, but she was carrying 2 Vorthon pistols and had a smile on her face. They took my demo charges, Daeun said, but I found their armory. Those stupid aliens store all captured weapons in one place. She held up a small device. I got my toys back. Jiwoo felt something warm in her chest. Pride. These people had been through hell, but they had not broken. They were ready to fight. Listen to me, Jiwoo said, raising her voice so everyone could hear. This ship has over 2,000 Vorthon warriors. We are 50. They are bigger, stronger, and better armed than we are. She paused. But we have something they do not. We know this is our only chance. We know we fight or we die, and humans do not go quietly. The prisoners cheered. It was a ragged sound, but it was fierce. Hyun-soo, Jiwoo continued, take a team to engineering. Shut down their shields and engines. I do not want this ship going anywhere. Yes, Captain. Hyun-soo gathered 10 people and headed down a corridor. Daeun, take the demo team to the weapons control room. I want every gun on this ship pointing inward. Da-eun grinned. It will be my pleasure, Captain. As the teams moved out, Jiwoo pulled aside a thin man with gray hair, Dr. Choi Min-ho. He had been a research scientist before the war. The Vorthons had captured him because of his work on bioweapons. Doctor, Jiwoo said quietly. Is it ready? Choi Min-ho nodded slowly. Yes, the pathogen I developed is in the air recycling system. I planted it the day they captured me, hidden inside a medical kit. It has been spreading through the ship for 3 days. He looked at her with tired eyes. But Captain, you know what this means. Once it activates, it will kill every Vorthon on this ship. All of them. I know, Jiwoo said. Her voice was hard. How do we activate it? Choi pulled out a small remote control. This will trigger it. But Captain, once it starts, there is no stopping it. The pathogen will spread to the entire Vorthon fleet through their communication arrays. Ships that dock with this one, supply vessels, everything. It could kill millions. Jiwoo took the remote from his hand. She looked at it for a long moment. Millions of lives. But then she thought about Earth. About the human colonies the Vorthons had destroyed. About the billions of humans who had died in this war. They started this war, she said quietly. They called us weak. They said we had no place among the stars. She put the remote in her pocket. Now they will learn the price of underestimating humanity. Across the ship, Lieutenant Hyun-soo and his team reached engineering. The Vorthons there were already in chaos, trying to figure out what was happening. They never expected an attack from inside their own ship. Hyun-soo and his team hit them hard and fast. The fight was brutal. The Vorthons were bigger and stronger, but the humans were desperate. And desperate people fight differently. They fight without fear of dying because death is already certain. The only question is how much damage they can do before the end. Hyun-soo himself killed 3 Vorthons. His broken leg screamed with every movement, but he ignored it. He had learned something during his captivity. Pain was just information. You could choose to listen to it, or you could choose to focus on something else. He chose to focus on revenge. When the engineering room was secured, he limped to the main console. The Vorthon writing was alien, but human intelligence had cracked their language years ago. He found the shield controls and disabled them. Then he found the engine controls and started the shutdown sequence. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. And somewhere on the bridge, Vorthon officers started to panic. Meanwhile, Corporal Da-eun and her team were having fun. She loved explosives. Always had. The Vorthons had tried to break her by destroying her demo charges in front of her. They thought it would crush her spirit. They were wrong. It just made her angry. Now she was in the weapons control room, surrounded by enough firepower to level a city. And she had full access to all of it. "Okay," she said to her team. "Here is the plan. We are going to turn every gun on this ship toward the interior. Then we are going to fire all of them at once." She looked at their shocked faces. "What?" The captain said to make it hurt. She started typing commands into the console. One by one, the ship's massive weapons began to move. Point defense guns, plasma cannons, missile batteries, all of them turned inward, aimed at the ship's own hull. A Vorthon warrior burst into the room. Da-eun shot him without looking up from her work. Another came through a different door. Her teammate handled that one. She kept typing. "Almost done," she muttered. "Just need to bypass the safety protocols and there." She pressed a final button. "Goodbye, you alien bastards." The ship's weapons fired. All of them. At the same time, explosions ripped through multiple decks. The Vorthons had built their ship to withstand attacks from outside. They never imagined it would attack itself. Entire sections vented to space. Hundreds of warriors died in seconds. On the bridge, Talvex watched his ship die. He had finally managed to free his hand from the wall, but it was too late. Everything was falling apart. His apex guard was dead. His prisoners were free. His ship was destroying itself, and somewhere in the chaos, one small human woman was orchestrating it all. He pulled up the security feeds trying to find her. When he did, he wished he had not. Jiwoo was making her way to the communications center. She was not sneaking. She was not hiding. She was walking through the corridors like she owned them. And any Vorthon who tried to stop her died. Some she shot. Others she outmaneuvered and killed with their own weapons. A few she simply avoided, letting them chase her into areas where the ship's own guns were firing. She was not just fighting. She was hunting. Talvex realized something that made his blood run cold. This human, this small, injured, supposedly weak creature was the most dangerous thing on his ship. More dangerous than his weapons. More dangerous than his warriors. Because she had nothing to lose. Jiwoo reached the communications center and killed the 3 guards outside. She stepped through the door and found exactly what she was looking for. The main communication array, linked to every Vorthon ship in the fleet. She pulled out the remote Dr. Choi had given her. One press of the button and the pathogen would spread. The Vorthon fleet would start dying. But first she had a message to send. She activated the ship-wide broadcast and spoke into the communicator. "Attention, Vorthon Empire," she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "My name is Captain Han Ji-woo of Earth. You have spent years telling us we are weak. You have destroyed our colonies. You have tortured our people. You have called us insects." She paused. "Today, this insect killed your apex guard. Today, this insect took your ship. And today, this insect is going to show you what happens when you back a human into a corner." She pressed the button. Across the ship, Vorthons began to feel sick. It started as a fever. Then came the pain. The pathogen was working exactly as designed, turning their own biology against them. And through the communication array, it spread. To every ship that had been in contact with this dreadnought. To every supply vessel. To every fleet in range, the Vorthon Empire was dying, and it all started with one human they had called weak. Talvex ran. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Talvex of the Vorthon Empire ran like prey. Behind him his ship was dying. The pathogen was spreading, his warriors were falling, and somewhere in the chaos that human woman was still hunting. He reached the escape pod bay, his 4 arms working frantically to open the access panel. His hands were shaking. He had never felt fear like this before. The Vorthons were supposed to be the apex predators of the galaxy. They were supposed to be unstoppable. But that human had stopped them. That one small, fragile human had destroyed everything. The door opened. Talvex stepped inside the bay and froze. Jiwoo was already there. She was sitting on one of the escape pods, a Vorthon rifle resting across her lap. Blood covered her uniform. Though Talvex could not tell how much of it was hers, she looked tired. She looked hurt. But her eyes were sharp and focused. "Hello, Commander," she said. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. "Going somewhere?" Talvex backed up a step. His hand went to his weapon, but Jiwoo was faster. She fired once, hitting his weapon and sending it spinning across the room. "I do not think so," she said. She stood up, moving slowly. Every motion looked painful, but she did not stop. "You and I need to talk." "Talk?" Talvex spat. "You have killed my warriors. You have destroyed my ship. What is there to talk about?" "Many things," Jiwoo said. She walked closer, and Talvex could see something in her hand. A small injector. "For example, I could tell you about the poison that is currently flowing through your veins." Talvex felt his stomach drop. "What?" "When I pinned your hand to the wall earlier," Jiwoo explained, "the weapon was coated with a slow-acting toxin. It has been spreading through your body for the past hour." She tilted her head. "Can you feel it yet? The weakness in your limbs? The slight burning in your chest?" Talvex realized she was right. He had been attributing it to stress, to exhaustion. But now that she mentioned it, he could feel something wrong. Something spreading through him like ice. "You are lying," he said, but his voice shook. Jiwoo shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe you have about 10 minutes before your nervous system shuts down and you die choking on the floor." She held up the injector. "But I have the antidote. If you want it, you just need to do one thing for me." Talvex stared at her. Pride warred with fear in his chest. He was a commander of the Vorthon Empire. He did not make deals with prey, but his hands were definitely shaking now. And the burning in his chest was getting worse. "What do you want?" he finally asked. Jiwoo smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I want you to send a message to the Vorthon High Command. I want you to tell them that you surrender. That your ship is compromised. That you need immediate assistance." Talvex laughed, though it came out as more of a wheeze. "That is all? You want me to call for help? Fine, I call for help, and then 50 warships come and blow you out of space." "Yes," Jiwoo agreed. "That is exactly what will happen. Please call them." Something about her tone made Talvex pause. She wanted him to call for help. She was practically begging him to do it. Which meant understanding crashed over him like cold water. "The pathogen," he whispered. "It is not just on this ship." Jiwoo's smile widened. "Very good, Commander. You are starting to understand. The pathogen I released has been spreading through your communication arrays. Every ship that has been in contact with this vessel is infected. And when you call for help, when those 50 warships come close," she made a small explosion gesture with her hands, "they become infected too." Talvex felt sick. "You would kill millions of my people." "Your people killed billions of mine," Jiwoo said. Her voice was suddenly cold, all traces of humor gone. "You destroyed our colonies. You tortured our prisoners. You called us weak and said we had no right to exist." She stepped closer. "So yes, Commander. I will kill millions of your people, and I will sleep just fine afterward." Talvex stumbled backward. His legs were definitely weaker now. The poison was working fast. "I will not do it," he gasped. "I will not sacrifice my fleet." "Then you will die," Jiwoo said simply. "And I will send the message myself using your biosignature. I already have access to all your command codes. The only difference is whether you die with some dignity or choking on the floor like an animal." She was telling the truth. Talvex could see it in her eyes. This human did not bluff. She did not make empty threats. If he refused, she would let him die and then do it anyway. He thought about his empire, about the thousands of worlds under Vorthon control, about the military might that had conquered half the galaxy. All of it built on the assumption that the Vorthons were superior, that they were the apex predators. But looking at this small human woman covered in blood and bruises, he realized the truth. Apex predators were not the biggest or the strongest. They were the ones who survived, the ones who adapted, the ones who would do whatever it took to win, and humans were very, very good at surviving. "I will do it," he said quietly. Jiwoo tossed him a communicator. Talvex caught it with shaking hands. He activated it and entered his command codes. A moment later, he was connected to the Vorthon High Command. "This is Commander Talvex," he said. His voice was weak, but it would have to do. "My ship has been compromised. The human prisoners have escaped and taken control of key systems. I am requesting immediate assistance." There was a pause. Then a voice came back. "Commander, this is High Command. We are dispatching a fleet to your location. Hold your position. Do not, I repeat, do not allow any humans to access your communication systems." Talvex looked at Jiwoo. She gestured for him to continue. "Understood," Talvex said. "I will hold position." "Talvex out." He closed the communicator and looked at Jiwoo. "I did what you asked. Now give me the antidote." Jiwoo walked over to him. She held up the injector. "You want to know something funny, Commander? There is no poison." "I lied." Talvex stared at her. "What?" "The weakness you feel is just exhaustion and stress," Jiwoo explained. "Your body's natural response to fear. There is no toxin. There never was," she smiled. "I just needed you to believe there was. And you did, because deep down you were already afraid of me." Talvex felt rage boil up inside him. She had tricked him, manipulated him, made him betray his own fleet based on a lie. He lunged at her, all four arms reaching, but Jiwoo was ready. She stepped to the side and pressed something against his neck. A real injector this time. Talvex felt liquid fire pour into his veins. This time it was not a lie. This time the poison was real. He collapsed, his body convulsing. Jiwoo stood over him, watching him die. "You were right about one thing, Commander," she said softly. "Humans are weak. We are small and fragile and easy to break," she paused. "But we are also patient. We are clever. And we never, ever forget." She turned to leave. Enjoy hell. As Talvex's vision faded, his last thought was a simple one. They had made a mistake. The Vorthon Empire had made a terrible, fatal mistake. They had gone to war with humans, and humans did not forgive. The human resistance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like predators emerging from the darkness. 50 ships, not nearly enough to challenge a Vorthon dreadnought under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. Admiral Kang Soo-jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display. The Vorthon dreadnought hung in space ahead of them, dark and silent. No shields, no weapons fire, no signs of resistance at all. "Scan that ship," she ordered. "Tell me what we are looking at." Her tactical officer worked his console. After a moment, he looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, I am reading minimal life signs. Maybe 50-60 humans. But the Vorthon signatures," he paused. "Most of them are dead or dying, ma'am." A murmur went through the bridge crew. Kang felt her heart beat faster. Could it be true? Had Jiwoo actually done it? "Open a channel to the dreadnought," Kang said. "Let me talk to whoever is in charge." A moment later, a face appeared on the main screen. It was dirty, covered in blood and bruises, but Kang would have recognized that face anywhere. "Captain Han Jiwoo," Kang said, and her voice cracked with emotion. "Report," Jiwoo smiled. It was a tired smile, but it reached her eyes. "Admiral, good to see you. The dreadnought is secure. All Vorthon command personnel are dead. The ship is yours." The bridge erupted in cheers. Kang had to raise her hand for silence. "Captain, how many casualties on our side?" Jiwoo's smile faded a bit. 12 dead, Admiral. 23 wounded. But we freed 52 prisoners total. And we have something else. The ship's data archives. Every Vorthon military code, every strategic plan, every secret they have been keeping. Kang felt like her legs might give out. This was not just a victory. This was a turning point in the entire war. "Captain, stand by. We are coming to get you." 3 hours later, Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the human flagship. She had been treated by the medical team, though they told her she needed rest. She ignored them. There was still work to do. Around her, the freed prisoners were being taken care of. Lieutenant Hyun-soo was in surgery for his leg. Corporal Da-eun was already planning her next explosion, much to the medical staff's concern. Dr. Choi Minho was being debriefed by intelligence officers. Admiral Kang approached her with a datapad in hand. "Captain, I have been reviewing the data you recovered. This is incredible. Fleet positions, supply routes, communication codes. With this information we can win the war," Jiwoo finished. "Yes, Admiral." That was always the plan. Kang looked at her with something like awe. "You planned all of this? The capture, the infiltration, everything?" Jiwoo nodded slowly. "The Vorthans think we are weak because we are small. They think strength only comes from size and power, but they are wrong." She looked out at the stars. "Strength comes from knowing your enemy, from being patient, from being willing to sacrifice." She paused. "From being willing to do whatever it takes to protect your people." "You let yourself be captured," Kang said. It was not a question. "Yes," Jiwoo confirmed. "We tracked that dreadnought for months. We learned everything about it, about its commander, about the Apex Guard. And then we set up an ambush that we knew we would lose. The Vorthans captured us exactly as planned. They brought us exactly where we needed to be." She smiled grimly. "And then we destroyed them from within." Kang was quiet for a moment. 12 people died, Jiwoo. 12 of our people." The smile disappeared from Jiwoo's face. "I know, I will remember every name, every face." She looked at Kang. "But if I had not done this, how many more would have died? How many colonies would the Vorthans have destroyed? This war has cost us billions. 12 lives to save billions more." She shook her head. "It was necessary." Before Kang could respond, an alarm sounded. The tactical officer called out, "Admiral, multiple Vorthan ships dropping out of FTL. 53 vessels, including 5 dreadnoughts." The bridge went silent. 53 Vorthon warships against their 50 resistance ships. Even with the captured dreadnought, they were outnumbered and outgunned. But Jiwoo was smiling. "All ships maintain position," Kang ordered. She looked at Jiwoo. "You knew they would come." "Of course," Jiwoo said. "I made Talvex call for help. I wanted them here." She pulled out a small remote control. Dr. Choi's pathogen has been spreading through their communication network for hours. Every ship that talked to the dreadnought is infected. Every ship that talked to those ships is infected. She looked at the tactical display. "The Vorthan fleet is dying, Admiral. They just do not know it yet." As if on cue, one of the Vorthan dreadnoughts started listing to the side. Then another. Ships began going dark, their systems failing as the crews inside succumbed to the pathogen. The human bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the mighty Vorthan fleet, the same fleet that had terrorized human space for years, began to fall apart. "All ships," Kang said, her voice steady. "Prepare to board and secure the Vorthan vessels. We are taking their entire fleet." Hours later, it was done. 53 Vorthan warships, including 5 dreadnoughts, had been captured or secured. The crews were dead or dying. The ships were now in human hands. Jiwoo stood at a window looking out at the captured fleet. Admiral Kang joined her. "The Vorthon High Command is already broadcasting across the galaxy," Kang said. "They are warning all species about the human threat. They are calling us a plague, a disease. They say we are too dangerous to be allowed to exist." Jiwoo nodded. "Good, let them be afraid. Fear will keep them from attacking us again." "But Jiwoo," Kang said quietly, "the other species, the ones the Vorthans have conquered, they are watching this. They are seeing what we did." She paused. "Some of them are already starting their own rebellions." Jiwoo smiled. It was the first genuine smile Kang had seen from her in months. "Then we have done more than win a battle, Admiral. We have shown the galaxy that the Vorthans can be beaten, that their empire is not invincible." She turned to face Kang. "We have given hope." Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Vorthan dreadnought had fallen. The Apex Guard, the supposedly unstoppable warriors, had been killed by a single human woman. A fleet of 53 warships had been captured. In the Vorthan High Command, emergency meetings were called. Generals argued. Politicians panicked. For the first time in their history, the Vorthans were afraid. They issued a decree that went out to every Vorthon ship, every colony, every outpost. Humans were now classified as a Class A threat species. They were to be avoided at all costs. Any engagement with human forces required approval from the highest levels of command. The decree included one final line, a quote from Commander Talvex's last transmission before his death. It had been recorded automatically by the ship's systems and had spread throughout the Vorthan network. The quote was simple, but it said everything that needed to be said. "We called them weak. We were fools. Humans do not need to be the strongest. They just need to be the last ones standing. On the human flagship, Jiwoo sat in her quarters. She was alone finally. The adrenaline had worn off. The pain from her injuries was catching up with her. She was exhausted, but she had done it. Against all odds, against an enemy that was bigger, stronger, and more powerful, she had won. She thought about the 12 people who had died. She thought about the Vorthans she had killed. She thought about the war that was still going on. And she thought about what Talvex had said right at the beginning. "You have no place among the stars." Jiwoo looked out at the captured Vorthan fleet, at the ships that now flew under human colors. She smiled. "We will see about that," she whispered. The galaxy had called humanity weak. They had said humans were too fragile, too small, too insignificant to matter. But the galaxy was learning a lesson that many predators had learned before them. Never corner a human. Because when you do, when you take away all their options and leave them with nothing to lose, that is when they become truly dangerous. That is when they show you what it really means to be human. That is when they fight back. And they never stop fighting. Not until they win, or until there is nothing left to fight for. The Vorthan Empire would remember this day for the rest of its existence. The day they learned that humans were not prey. The day they learned that humans were predators. The day one small, injured woman destroyed their best warriors, captured their fleet, and changed the course of the war. The day the alien commander called her weak and watched his apex guard die screaming.